In the Quiz 2 material, you learned how to convert fractions into decimals and vice versa. Let's go one more step now. Let's talk about percentages, or just percents. It's just another way to write a fraction, a decimal in a weird kind of way. So let's start from scratch. 1/2. Here we go again. You know this. What would that be as a decimal number? Well, if you didn't know off the top of your head, which you should, get your handy dandy calculator. You take 1, you divide it by 2, and the answer is 0.5. But you knew that already. But let's convert that now to a percent. The term, in case it doesn't, in case you don't know this, the word percent, that word cent, like the word century, means parts of 100. It's all dealing with parts of 100. So recall, when you multiply or divide by 100, you merely move the decimal left or right 2 places. That's all we're going to do here. So if I want to convert this into a percent, I'm merely going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right, which means I go 1 little jump, 2 little jumps, a 0 goes there, the dot ends up there, so that number is 50, but no, of course, now I got to put the percent sign. That's 50%. Hey, 1/2 is 50%. You knew this, but that's the way it's done. Now, I'm leading to a whole bunch of stuff here, but what you'll have to do eventually is convert any one of these to the other two. In this case, I first converted a fraction to a decimal. Then I converted a decimal into a percent. Let's do another one that way. What about 3/4? What would that be first as a decimal number? And then what would that be as a percent? Well, if I take 3 divided by 4, I end up with 0.75. But now let's convert that to a percent. Well, you move the decimal 2 places to the right. I go 1, 2. The dot ends up right there. So the answer is 75%. You're thinking, well, this isn't hard. No, it's not hard. That's the way that works. Well, let's try something else. What about something like 2/7? Well, I don't know what that is. I hadn't memorized that. If I take 2 divided by 7, that's going to be 0.2857. It keeps on going. 0.2857. And it goes on and on. I just stopped it right there. Okay, it keeps on going forever, to infinity and beyond, as they say. Let's now convert that to a percent. We'll move it 2 places to the right. I move the dot here, then here. The dot ends up right there. Well, how far do I round off? You'll probably be told mostly in the homework and on the quiz how far to round off. If you were told here to round off to the nearest whole number percentage, okay, we're doing percentages now. The next whole number percent would be, hey, if I'm going to stop it right here at the whole number, that next number being a 5, this becomes the next higher number, and I would call that 29. Ooh, that's a weird looking 9, I'm so sorry. 29%. If I were told to round this off to 0.1%, I'm going to stop it right there. But remember, since that's 5 or more, I'll make this the next higher number, and I'd call that 28.6. 28.6%. So round off the way you're told to, and you'll be told usually in the homework or on the quiz how far to round these percentages off. But that's the way you do it. You got that? Convert the fraction to a decimal, then convert that to a percent. Well, what if we're given a decimal first? Well, that's already right there. Let's convert that to a percent. 0.64. You move it over. 1, 2. Dot goes there. So that's 64%. Of course, recall we did this before. I'm going to refresh your memory. What if I were given 0.64 and you had to convert that to a fraction? The other way to, quote, read these numbers, I would say 0.64. But how else can you say 0.64? You sound goofy saying it, but you could say 64 hundredths. Nobody says it that way, except weird, crazy, idiot nerds. But if you wrote it as 64 hundredths, and then reduce that to lowest terms, you've got your fraction. Let's see, what can I reduce that by? I can reduce both those by 2. That makes 32. That makes 50. I can keep going, right? Divide those by 2 again. 16 25ths. Okay. There's the fraction in reduced to lowest terms form. 0.3. Well, how would I convert that to a percentage? I move the decimal 2 places to the right. 1, 2, but I got to put a 0 there to take up the space. The dot ends up there. And what number is that? 30%. Excuse me. How would I have converted 0.3 into a fraction? Well, how else could I have said 0.3? I could have said 3/10. Well, write it. 3/10. That's already reduced. That's as good as it gets. I got it. What if I'm given a percentage? Am I going too fast? Oh, no, you're fine. If I'm given a percent, I must convert this now into both of those, fractions and decimal. Well, let's do decimals first. They're easier. Hey, recall, if you have a decimal, to convert to a percent, you move the decimal to the right 2 places. If I'm given a percent, I move it back 2 places. Well, here we go again. That's a whole number. There's no dot written down, but we know in a whole number the dot ends up right there. So I move it back 2 places. 1, 2, the dot ends up there. Of course, I get rid of the percent sign and just call it 0.46. So 46% is 0.46 as a decimal number. And please don't mess this up. This is no longer a percent. That's just a decimal number. There's no percent sign there. That's the percent. If I converted this to a fraction, same thing I just did up here. If I say this in this other crazy way, 46 hundredths, and write that number as 46 hundredths, and then reduce that to lowest terms, and I'll let you do that yourself. There you have a fraction. Brush up on reducing to lowest terms. Okay. Let's do another one. 32%. Let's convert that to a decimal number. The dot, as we know, is right there. Move it back to the left 2 places. 1, 2. The dot ends up right there. 0.32. Let me stress yet again. If there's nothing to the left of that dot, you have to put a 0. Never write 0.32. Nothing. No. Always put the dot. Always put the 0 to the left of the dot. Now there's more about percent in the next video, I should say, exciting video lecture, okay? But this gets the basic idea of converting any one of these to any of the other forms. And maybe that was fast and furious, but that's the basic idea behind this portion of it. We have one more exciting lecture video about the other thing about percentages, so get this down first. Understand how to do this, then watch the other one. I know you can't wait.